Disaster Talks, where disaster is the talk of your town. I'm Rama Kemp, the Executive Director for Grace Community Services. Today we're going to talk with Miss Cornelia Banks, all the way from the island of Galveston. Miss Banks is a retired educator and a community activist. We're so glad that you could come and visit with us today. We appreciate all the work that you do.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm glad that you're here. I just wanted you to come on and just give us some information about the things that you are doing with the Northside Task Force, what you guys have been able to do since Hurricane Ike hit the Gulf.
Well, we've done many things. In fact, people would not believe that we have met every Tuesday since the storm.
Yes.
We have been very instrumental in being an educator to the community. When FEMA was there, we were able to bring many people together to understand the FEMA process. And of course, we met all of you from Grace Community Services, and that allowed us to understand that recovery just wasn't going to happen tomorrow. And I think that that was the hardest thing to actually deal with. The fact that, you know, we wanted it done soon.
Yes.
Immediately.
Right.
We knew that there were monies that were available, and explaining to folk how they had to apply for those monies. And now 2 years later, we have really come to the head with the federal government being able to know that we have 197 million out there somewhere in Moneyland, and folk had to actually apply. And
yes.
Originally the form was something like 50 pages long, and we lobbied to get it maybe now 15. Out of that, 3,000 people have applied, and out of that only 200 are being able to actually probably see the money soon, and that's just the first round of money.
Yeah, you know, you spoke about the numbers of people, but you also talked about lobbying.
Oh, yeah.
That is so important to any community, especially when they have to heal. And you said about how, as a survivor, because you're a survivor as well.
That's right. That's absolutely
that
correct.
You have to go through the healing process, and the healing process in government and in different agencies takes a while before the money can get to the street. And unfortunately, if we're not disaster prepared and ready or educated on how it trickles down, we can become disgruntled and even hopeless. But I just wanted you to explain to us, in you guys' effort to keep the community abreast of all of the things that are happening. As you talked about, it's about 200 people now. Mm-hmm. And then you said it was 2 years later, mm-hmm. after the storm. For someone that is tuning in, they might not have ever experienced what the islanders are experiencing now. What has that been like, trying to get people to understand what it was and where it is now?
Well, it's actually heartbreaking. That's one thing. It's people think that you're not telling them the truth. You are constantly being told that those people are not really telling the truth. The government is, you know, there's always those kind of speculation that the government is not going to do anything for you. Persons who use their own monies, their own savings to repair their homes now have found out that they are not going to be reimbursed. And, you know, it's just heartbreaking in every arena. We've also dealt with education, because we lost over 20,000 people, and that means that the school districts, the kids are not there. We are very, very going through some major changes about public housing. Mm-hmm. We have people who have let their opinions about public housing become extremely, the island is extremely divided.
Now, in the beginning, the argument about public housing down on the island was that they didn't want public housing, but you just can't do away with people who have been there all their lives. But hasn't that changed now? Aren't they trying to, and isn't the public housing coming back?
Well, we know that the public housing is coming back based upon 569 of the housing that was removed from the island. But what has happened, because those that are against public housing have decided in many cases that those persons who lived on the island should live across the causeway on the mainland. There are those who just feel that rather than have it in a congested area as it was built in Galveston, a lot of folk don't realize that those homes were built in World War II. And so in early times, the property was only on the north side of Galveston. And it wasn't by design of segregating at the time. Well, they were segregated in the sense that one oleander was for whites, Palm Terrace and Cedar Terrace was for African Americans, and then Magnolia was for Hispanics. And as time has gone, of course, things changed and everybody was living everywhere. But once the property became blightful, then folk decided that was the bad part of town. And so actually we have blightful areas throughout the whole island. But it became the area from which, now that the folk are gone, all of the public housing is torn down, and we have a faction who believe that everybody should own their own homes. And it's not that we don't feel the same way, or it should be mixed usage, whereas it's public housing
Absolutely.
and rental as such. But we do have a number of people who do not meet the criteria. They make $19,000 and less.
So what do you say we should do? How do we keep hope alive? How do we, because those people are important too.
Yes.
And sitting in all the meetings, we hear that there are great advocates out there for public housing to come back, because people do matter.
Yes, yes.
And people mattered before the storm.
Yes.
They're going to matter after the storm.
Exactly.
So how do you keep, and what do you say to people who are losing help and they are across the causeway and they're trying to come home?
Well, many of us are being the actual voice for those folk. And as you say, we are there at every meeting in the city and going to wherever we can go to hear, to have people to understand that those folks are interested in speaking. We try to bring some back to say that they're interested. There are surveys, there are petitions and all kinds of activities, because our churches had to be rebuilt where most of the people attended church.
Absolutely.
And so we have ministers who are trying to get where their congregation to bring them back.
So 2 years later,
Wow.
and people are still displaced.
Still displaced.
They're still not home.
Still not home.
You know, how can you imagine when you were in high school, you were the head cheerleader or the captain of the football team, and it's your senior year, and Ike comes along?
Well,
That's devastating.
devastating. We've had some really interesting things to happen recently with our school district based upon that. One of the schools that was originally a high school received quite a bit of damage, and it is
Would that be Old Central?
well, it's Central, the Central that was the high school. And both schools, Central and Ball High, were built, became high schools in 1885 and 1886, respectively. Central, during the time of separate but equal, both schools were built by the same architect, have the same facilities, but when there was became integration, Central became the middle school. But because it had so much damage, everybody was sent to the other one school that we had.
So now, where are they with that?
Hello, we have now reopened Central.
Awesome.
In fact, today is the ribbon cutting at 2 o'clock. We're excited. One of the things that people didn't realize is that the library is the largest library of any library in the school. It has an indoor swimming pool. It has a large, everything has just been redone.
And it's also historical.
It's historical. It was the first African American high school in the state of Texas where
the
people
state of Texas,
where people came far and near to have their African American students educated. And so we're, extremely proud. And FEMA paid for 90% of the damages repaired, as well as the fact that it was heavily insured. So the city was not really taken back from that. But our kids are now going to have a spacious, beautiful place
to come home
to.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you do. I know that you're from a line of educators in your family. I know as I walked the halls of Central, I saw your family. Was it your dad?
My dad was a principal of an elementary school, but my mother was la maestra de Español in La Ciudad.
That's awesome.
De Galveston and the Escuela de Central.
Look at that. That's so awesome. You are truly a replica of history and wisdom. I thank you so much for coming on and just giving us some insight. If I could say anything, it is an honor to even sit with history on Disaster Talk. I had a privilege of being able to ride with you and share with you, and you took me around Galveston, and I met so many great people, really great people. But you know what? I just want to compliment you because you have been one of the world's greatest volunteers. You don't come on time, but you are a great volunteer.
But I don't think people realize that Grace Community Services was there for us before there was any group. And there were families to this day who received furniture that they never thought that they were going to get new furniture immediately, even though you guys got involved with another group or many groups, but you guys were there using your monies.
Yes, ma'am.
Before any money came to the island, and we certainly thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for me. Cornelia Banks, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If anybody is out there and you're still hurting from Hurricane Ike, I encourage you to find an advocate, an activist. They're still on the island. They'll be there when all of the other agencies are gone. I encourage you to stop by the Northside Task Force. Visit their meetings. They're held at the Live Oak Church on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 p.m. Or you can call Cornelia Banks. Would you like to give your number and your website?
Sure. Area code 409-789-1048. And we have now moved our meetings back on the north side.
Wow.
So we're at Mount Olive Baptist Church.
That's
on
awesome.
36th and H.
36th and H. There you have it. Join them on Tuesday nights, the Northside Task Force. Again, stay tuned for our next Disaster Talk.